Brent, I'm really excited about logistics and supply chain management and competitive strategy. And the reason is this topic can transform companies. It can take them from being losing companies to winning companies. It could actually transform our economy. If we can really get across these concepts, it could create competitive advantage for our whole country.
Wow, Matt, I'm excited too. Let's dig in. Let's look at lesson 1 and look at an example. Let's look at Walmart, one of the most successful companies in the history of the world. Now, you've been here, you've seen it for the last 20 years. Can you tell us how they did it?
I moved to Northwest Arkansas in the early 90s when Kmart and Walmart were at about the same revenue. It was around $28 billion, if I remember correctly. And then all of a sudden, Walmart just took off and left all of their competitors behind. And I really believe that one of the main reasons is their logistics network design strategy. We're talking about where do you put stores? Where do you put distribution centers?
How exactly does it make a difference for the company when they think carefully about it?
So let's say you have one store in, say, Bentonville. You say, I want to open the next store. You'd say, well, which market is best? You might say, well, San Francisco's best. Let's build a store there. Or you could say, well, let's build a store fairly close to where we already are, perhaps Lowell, for example. Those strategies are very different. The first strategy is more about trying to place stores close to markets. The second one is trying to keep them together. And at some point, when you have enough stores, let's say 100, if they're close together, you can use a distribution center. And the distribution center will reduce labor costs, it will reduce transportation costs, inventory costs, and improve customer service.
You know, one other really important concept that applies to logistics and supply chain management is economies of scope. Talk a little bit about scope and how that fits in.
Walmart's network strategy is mind-boggling. It floors you how they were able to be so disciplined in keeping their stores close together so they could reduce transportation costs, inventory costs, and labor costs and get economies of scope, which is about spreading costs out over more stores. Walmart was able to do it, and we're going to see that in just a moment.
Let's watch. Let's see how their network has exploded over this period of time.
Yeah, it's interesting. These blue dots are store openings. Store openings. Think about this. 1967, they had 3 stores. Today, they're the biggest company on earth ever. Now, eventually, you're going to see new clusters of stores. You just saw some in the southeast, but you'll see new clusters of stores pop up in the west, in the north, and the northeast. That's because they've built distribution centers in new locations, and they start building out their networks in those locations. You can imagine how hard it is to implement a strategy like this because people are so oriented towards thinking about a market. Walmart had a rule that they would not allow new stores to be built more than 2 days' drive from the distribution center. Their competitors didn't do that, and we see the results today.
Does it affect how your costs are related to building those stores?
Absolutely. If you think about it, if I build a store in Bentonville, and Lowell, and Bella Vista, and Rogers, cities that are close to one another, I can find good contractors, I can find good workers, we can start working together to try to improve processes. If instead I build one store in Bentonville, one in San Francisco, one in New York, it's like I'm starting all over every time.
Can't you imagine Mr. Sam continuing to say we're going to stick to this strategy of using our supply chain to our advantage?
He must have been a tremendous visionary. I hope we can communicate these concepts to all of our students out there so that they can really adopt these in their strategy.
Wow, what an interesting example and a huge success story. Thank you.
Thank you.